I sat in the driveway of my childhood home at 2 o'clock in the morning, the cold leather of my old sedan's seat biting through my jeans, watching the moonlight glint off the polished silver hood of a brand new BMW parked right in front of the garage. It had a massive red velvet bow on it, looking like something out of a commercial, a symbol of everything I was apparently worth to my parents compared to my younger sister, Maya. In my pocket, I felt the sharp edge of the $2 bill my father had handed me earlier that night with a wink, telling me not to spend it all in one place. That $2 bill was the final straw, the tiny, paper-thin catalyst that made me realize I was a supporting character in someone else's fairy tale. So, I did the only thing I had left to do. I put the car in reverse, backed out of the driveway for the last time, and blocked every single person in that house before I even hit the main road. I have to ask you guys right now, before I even get into the history of how things got this bad, was I being dramatic for leaving over a car, or would you have walked away from a family that clearly put a price tag on your soul to understand why a $2 bill and a BMW sent me over the edge? You have to understand the dynamic of the Miller household, where I, Leo, was always the reliable one and Maya was the special one. I'm 24 now, and Maya is 21. From the time we were kids, the rules were different for us. If I got a B on a test, I was grounded because I wasn't living up to my potential. If Maya passed a class she had been failing, my parents, Sarah and David, would take us all out to a steak dinner to celebrate her growth. I worked a part-time job starting at 16 to pay for my own clothes and my first beat-up truck, while Maya got a monthly allowance just for being under a lot of stress. From high school social circles, my parents aren't poor. My dad is a senior partner at an architectural firm, and my mom owns a successful boutique. They have money, but they always told me that struggle builds character. Apparently, they thought I needed to be a person of immense character, while Maya was allowed to be a person of immense luxury. I never complained much because I bought into the lie. I thought that by being the self-sufficient son, I was earning their respect. I worked through college, taking out minimal loans and working graveyard shifts at a warehouse to cover the rest. When I graduated, they gave me a framed photo of the family. When Maya graduated high school, they paid for a 3-week trip to Europe for her and her friends. It was always like this, a slow drip of inequality that I tried to ignore. The tension really started building about 6 months ago, when Maya dropped out of her second semester of college because she felt uninspired. Instead of being disappointed, my parents welcomed her back home with open arms, telling her she just needed a gap year to find her passion. During this gap year, she spent her days posting on social media and her nights partying, often using my parents' credit cards. Meanwhile, I was working 60 hours a week at an entry-level marketing firm, barely making rent on my tiny studio apartment, and still showing up every Sunday for family dinner because I valued the connection. At one of these dinners, the topic of Maya's 21st birthday came up. My parents were acting incredibly secretive, whispering and giggling like school kids. My dad looked at me and said, "Leo, we're doing something big this year. Something to really kickstart Maya's next chapter." I assumed they meant they were paying for her to go back to school, or maybe helping her with a down payment on a small condo. I even felt a twinge of excitement for her. But then my mom added, "And don't worry, Leo, we haven't forgotten about your promotion celebration either." I had just been promoted to a junior manager position after 2 years of grinding, and it felt like finally they were seeing me. The big day arrived yesterday. It was Maya's birthday, and my parents had organized a huge backyard barbecue. All their friends were there, all of Maya's friends, and I showed up straight from work, still in my suit, carrying a thoughtful gift I'd saved up for, a high-end camera because Maya had mentioned wanting to try photography. When I arrived, the atmosphere was electric. My father stood up on the deck, clinking a glass to get everyone's attention. He gave this long, winding speech about how Maya was the light of their lives, how she had a free spirit that they wanted to nurture, and how they wanted to make sure she traveled in style and safety. Then he pressed a button on a remote, and the garage door rolled up. There it was, a silver BMW M3, shimmering under the LED lights, with that ridiculous red bow. Maya screamed, my mother cried, and the crowd cheered. It was a $70,000 car, given to a girl who hadn't held a job for more than 2 weeks in her entire life. I stood there, clapping politely, my stomach feeling like it was full of lead. After the commotion died down, my father walked over to me. He had a huge grin on his face. He leaned in and said, "Now, for our big achiever. We are so proud of that promotion, Leo. You're really becoming a man of means." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crisp, folded bill. He tucked it into my shirt pocket and patted it. A little something for good luck, the deuce for the new boss. I opened it, expecting maybe a check, or at least $100 bill as a gesture. It was a single $2 bill, a novelty, a joke. He laughed. My grandpa gave me one of those when I got my first real job. It's a tradition. I looked from the $2 bill to the BMW, then back to my father's eyes. He wasn't joking. He truly thought this was an appropriate balance. My mother came over and hugged me, saying, "You've always been so independent, Leo. You don't need the help like Maya does. You should be proud of that." I felt a wave of coldness wash over me that I can't even describe. It wasn't just about the money or the car. It was the realization that my independence was being used as a justification to neglect me. I was being punished for being successful, while Maya was being rewarded for her stagnation. I stayed for another hour, moving through the party like a ghost. I watched Maya take selfies with the car. I watched my parents beam with pride as they told their friends how much the insurance was going to cost. Nobody asked me about my new job. Nobody asked how my apartment was. I was just the reliable son in the background. Around midnight, the party started to wind down. Maya and her friends took the BMW out to go to a club. My parents went upstairs to bed, exhausted from their hosting duties. I stayed behind, sitting on the back porch, staring at the empty spot where the car had been. I realized that if I stayed in this cycle, I would spend the rest of my life waiting for a scrap of validation that was never going to come. They didn't see me as a person. They saw me as a finished product that didn't require any more maintenance, while Maya was a project they could pour their identity into. So I made a choice. I went inside, grabbed the $2 bill from the kitchen counter where I'd left it, and I wrote a small note on the back of it. It said, "Since you think I'm so independent, I've decided to prove you right. Consider this my final bill for services rendered as your son." I walked out to my car, my heart hammering against my ribs. I sat there for 2 hours, just thinking, wrestling with the guilt, until 2:00 a.m. hit. I realized then that I didn't want to hear their excuses. I didn't want the "we didn't mean it that way" or the "you're being ungrateful" speech. I pulled out my phone. I went to my contacts: mother, block; father, block; Maya, block. I even blocked a few aunts and uncles I knew would be used as flying monkeys to guilt trip me. I deleted my social media apps so I wouldn't be tempted to check their stories. I started the engine, and as I backed out, I felt this incredible sense of lightness. For the first time in 24 years, I wasn't wondering if I was good enough for them. I was only wondering if I was good enough for me. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next and how the family reacted when they finally realized I was gone, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have stayed and tried to talk it out? Or would you have vanished into the night like I did? I drove 3 hours to the city where I work, arriving just as the sun was starting to peek over the horizon. I didn't go to sleep. I went to the office early, worked a full day, and then went to my apartment and started packing. I knew that even though I had blocked them, they knew where I lived. They knew where I worked. If I wanted a clean break, I had to be thorough. Luckily, my new promotion came with the option to transfer to our West Coast branch, something I had been hesitant about because I didn't want to leave my family. Now, that hesitation was gone. I called my boss that Monday and told him I'd take the transfer. I was gone within the week. About 3 days after I left, I started getting emails. Since I hadn't blocked their email addresses yet, the messages came flooding in. The first few were from my mom, asking why I was being so childish, and telling me that Maya was upset I hadn't liked her birthday posts. Then came the email from my dad. It wasn't an apology, it was a lecture. He told me that my stunt was embarrassing to the family and that I needed to grow up and realize that life isn't always fair. He actually mentioned the $2 bill again, saying I had disrespected a family tradition. That was the moment I knew I'd made the right call. There was no self-reflection on their part, no realization that giving one child a luxury vehicle and the other a $2 bill was objectively insane. To them, I was the one who was wrong for noticing the disparity. I replied to that one email. I simply said, "The tradition ends with me. Have a great life with your daughter. I hope the BMW keeps you warm at night when you realize you traded a son for a car." Then, I blocked their emails too. It's been 6 months now. I'm living in a new city 2,000 miles away. I have a new apartment with a view of the ocean, and I'm making more money than I ever thought possible. But more importantly, I have peace. I don't wake up wondering who I have to impress. I don't go to dinners where I'm invisible. I heard through a mutual friend that Meyer ended up getting into a fender bender with the BMW 2 months in, and my parents were stressed about the repair costs because she didn't have insurance and they had to cover it. They tried to reach out to me to borrow some money to help her out, thinking that my promotion meant I was now the family bank. They couldn't even get through to my phone. My friend told them I'd moved, but didn't tell them where. They are apparently heartbroken, but I know them. They aren't heartbroken that I'm gone. They're heartbroken that their safety net is gone. They're heartbroken that they no longer have the reliable son to fix the messes the special daughter makes. Looking back, that $2 bill was the greatest gift they ever gave me. It was the moment of absolute clarity I needed to realize that family isn't about blood. It's about who actually sees you and values you. I'm building a new family here, made of friends and colleagues who respect my hard work and don't expect me to sacrifice my happiness for someone else's vanity. I still have that $2 bill, actually. I kept it. I framed it and put it on my desk in my new office. It's a reminder that my value isn't determined by what someone else gives me, but by what I'm willing to walk away from to keep my dignity. I learned that the hardest part of leaving a toxic situation isn't the departure itself. It's the realization that you should have left a long time ago. If you're in a position where you feel like you're being treated as an afterthought, let this be your sign. You are worth more than a novelty bill and a tradition of neglect. Don't wait for them to see your value. because some people are blinded by their own favoritism. Walk away, block the noise, and build a life that belongs to you and you alone. It's the most terrifying and rewarding thing you will ever do. Like this video if you were on my side, and think I did the right thing by cutting them off. Subscribe for more stories like this, where we dive into the messy reality of family dynamics and standing up for yourself. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Have you ever dealt with a golden child, sibling, and how did you handle it? I really want to hear your stories and know that I'm not alone in this. I'll see you all in the next story.